Welcome to this week's live and podcast. So I'm doing it a little bit differently this week. I'm live streaming. So I'm live streaming to Facebook, I'm live streaming to YouTube, and this is also going to be the recording of the podcast. And oh yes, I'm live streaming to two places on Facebook. So I am seriously multitasking today. We'll see how it goes. I've got lots of notes in front of me. Let me know what you think. Let me know whether you think it works as a live stream, but also if you are a listener of the podcast, I want to know whether you think it works to just hear the audio of this, or whether you prefer the old style podcast where it was just me talking into a mic. All a little bit experimental. So I'd love to hear your feedback. Welcome, everybody. My name is Caroline Flanagan. For those of you who don't know me, and this is the first time either seeing me or listening to me, I am a certified coach. I am a keynote speaker. I'm very passionate in helping you to solve your imposter syndrome. I'm the creator of the imposter speech, which is the tool that I created to help you solve that imposter syndrome. I'm also the host of the Caroline Flanagan podcast. And every week I will be, or I am appearing live on various social media channels, coming to you on the podcast to share my advice, my strategies, to share lots of insights on imposter syndrome and how you can solve yours. And I'm also here to answer your questions. So if you do have any questions while I'm speaking, or later, if you're watching the replay, then please add them to the comments. Please put them in, and I will. In fact, going forward, I'd love this to be much more of a Q&A where I come in and I respond to any questions you have about imposter syndrome, and in particular about how you would use your imposter speech. So on that note, that brings me to what I'd like to talk about today, which is using the imposter speech in the real world. Now, before I get to that point, I just want to stop and say, what is going on with the weather here in the UK? I'm going to digress for just a moment. So the sun has just come out and it looks beautiful, but it's literally it's snowed today. There's been a little bit of rain. It's been windy. We've literally had 4 seasons in one day, and it's been like that for the past few days. So wherever you are watching this or listening to this, I hope the weather is a little bit more stable and less turbulent where you are than it is where I am. Having said that, I am very excited, as I'm pretty sure everybody in the UK is, to know that today, which is Monday, the 12th of April, things are starting to open up. I think the shops actually opened up today. Now, I haven't been in a shop yet today, but I have spoken to people who have, and it is amazing to feel that, I don't know, it feels like we've been hibernating for the last few months. Well, forever, and finally we're waking up. So fingers crossed, if you're out there starting to enjoy a little bit more freedom, then good for you, and long may it last. Okay, let's get back to the imposter speech, imposter syndrome, and the topic of today's broadcast. I want to talk about how you use the imposter speech in the real world. Now, if you have listened to any of my lives, my podcasts over the last 8 weeks, I've done an 8-week imposter syndrome series on the podcast, the Caroline Flanagan podcast. So if you haven't listened to that, I highly recommend that you go back and listen to it. I think I start at about episode 78, and then it runs and runs and runs. So super exciting, lots of content, lots of value for you for free to go and listen to help you with your imposter syndrome, so that this year, and from this year onwards, you can start really stepping into your true value, stepping up to your potential, which is what I'm all about helping you do. So today, what is the value of the imposter speech, and how practically would you use it in the real world? That's what I want to share with you. So a question to start off with: when your imposter syndrome hits, when it's triggered, what do you do? Do you have a set process or strategy, a go-to tool that you like to use that works every time, that you can rely on to get you through to the next step, or to just dive into what you need to do, or show up where you need to show up? Do you have that tool that you know that by using it over and over again, it's helping you to get better and better, experience more and more of your value, and be more confident, but to actually be able to trust yourself going forward, that no matter what imposter syndrome crisis you may encounter, no matter what situation you may find yourself in, you can pull out that tool and rely on that tool to get you through. That was a long question. So, do you have your go-to strategy for imposter syndrome? Now, you may feel that actually, yes, you do. That perhaps thinking about your past successes and the how hard you've worked to get where you are, maybe that's your strategy, and you think about that, and it gets you there in the right moment. In which case, fantastic if you've got your go-to tool. And in fact, I want to invite you, if there is a strategy that you use every time and it works for you, I want to encourage you to please share it, right? If you're watching this on YouTube or on Facebook, share it in the comments, share it with our community, so we can start to really create this culture of sharing different tips and strategies and tools for imposter syndrome. We all respond to different things. So if you've got something that works for you, amazing. I'd love to hear about it, and so would so many others. But what if you haven't? What if every time your imposter syndrome is triggered, you scramble around for a solution? You don't know what to do. What if every time your imposter syndrome sparks up, you find yourself shrinking, wanting to be small, wanting to hide, all those symptoms that we know so well that are symptoms of imposter syndrome? What if you get caught up in that and you can't see your way out? Or what if the strategies that work for you maybe occasionally in the past just have stopped working for you now? Or what if you're just tired of always finding yourself in that situation, as if you're back to square one? So let me tell you about my experience. And it's really how I came to arrive at the result of solving my imposter syndrome in a way that allows me to show up so much more courageously and confidently and adding more value than ever before. So before, I would have my imposter syndrome, it would be triggered by something. Now, there's two different aspects for me. There's the full-blown imposter syndrome crisis that I might have, and I've had a number of those throughout my life. They're very specific. I have told lots of stories about those particular moments, including most recently when writing Be the First, when writing my book, and worrying, like actually having imposter syndrome about writing a book about imposter syndrome. So that's one of my crises, which was like a really kind of serious moment where I felt like, what am I going to do? I was stuck. I felt that didn't know how I would go on. I was searching around for something that would help me to work through that. So it was like a critical moment of my imposter syndrome being triggered. But then there are all the other ways in which imposter syndrome reveals itself, impacts my life. So there are those moments, and I know that so many of you can relate to this, the low level anxiety that's more of a constant, I was going to say constant sort of burn, but I'm not sure if the burn is the right word, but it's just always there, almost like a hum in the background, that ongoing anxiety that you may feel just showing up to work every day, just logging on your computer may trigger that kind of, oh, here we go again, doing work that I just don't feel that I know how to do competently enough, doing work that I think everybody else is doing so much better than me, doing work that I shouldn't be doing because I feel like a fraud. I feel like I don't deserve to be here. That constant feeling that really very slowly, very, very gradually kind of eats away at us, right? It's very debilitating. So there are different ways to experience imposter syndrome. But in any of those scenarios, we need a coping mechanism. We need to know what to do in order to be able to show up as the best of who we are, which is what this is all about. It's about overriding those feelings of self-doubt. So for me, when I had those scenarios, and sorry about the noise, that's my husband's laptop, which I forgot to remove from the room. So if that goes off, you know what it is. So in those scenarios, what I would do was previously, I would scramble around for a solution. I will have done all of those, read lots of articles, read some of the books about how to cope with imposter syndrome. I will have tried, speaking to somebody near and dear to me who I know really loves me and believes in me. And they would tell me, oh, come on, you always do this really, really well. And you know what you're doing, you've got it. And they'd say, they'd try and build me up with their sort of compliments. And it would never work because I never believed that. Remember, imposter syndrome, it doesn't care about what's true or not. My imposter syndrome was quite stubborn in insisting that I was a fraud, I didn't deserve my success. So it really never quite worked being told by somebody else that I did deserve to be where I am. So that's one of the first things I would try. Another one would be, and this was a favorite of mine, like fake it till you make it. I don't know if you've come across that one and you've tried it for yourself. Let's just kind of, power pose our way through it, or let's just like bulldoze, put our heads down and bulldoze our way through it. And that might get you there. And I know this has come up in, for example, some of, I was going to say Brené Brown's work. She doesn't say literally fake it till you make it. I think she says fake it till you become it, or something similar. And, sometimes that does work. Sometimes you can kind of put on a front and take that next step and do just enough to get through it. And maybe do that often enough so that you do become more confident. Now, I found that did work for me sometimes, but actually it was so anxiety inducing and so exhausting, faking a feeling, pretending to feel a way I did not feel. So while it worked in some scenarios, actually there was sort of quite a high price to pay in terms of my mental energy and my exhaustion. So again, a tip that may have worked a little bit or sometimes, but never quite got me there. And here's the frustrating thing for me with both those strategies and other strategies that I tried. Whenever my imposter syndrome was triggered again, whenever the next crisis struck, I always felt I was back to square one. I felt like I was starting again, scrabbling around again for the right strategy in the right moment. And honestly, after years and years of doing this and trying to battle my way through and overcome this imposter syndrome, I just got, well, I was going to say fed up, but actually it was exhaustion. I was exhausted and massively frustrated by the fact that I kept finding myself in the same situation, questioning my abilities, doubting myself, telling myself all sorts of stories about how I didn't deserve to be where I was. And what I wanted, what I so desperately needed and sought and then found, was something that went a lot deeper than those more surface level solutions. I wanted something more transformational. I needed to be making progress. I needed to be getting better at dealing with my imposter syndrome, at getting myself through it, at managing my anxiety. That's how I came to create the imposter speech. And so what I want to tell you today is that the imposter speech is exactly that tool. If you, like me, are someone who's tired of finding themselves always back there, suffering in that kind of spiraling self-doubt of your imposter syndrome, feeling like a fraud, struggling with a way to move forward, to overcome those emotions so that you could show up really authentically as the best version of yourself, then the imposter speech is a solution that will, if you use it correctly, if you build it correctly with the help of a coach or working properly through the process, it's not just a quick fix you can do in 10 minutes. It's a proper, considered, well thought out process. If you do the work that's involved in building your own unique imposter speech, it will become the tool for you that transforms how you experience your imposter syndrome, how you show up to it, how you get through it, and how you then move forward. How do I know that? Because it's exactly what it's been for me, and it's what I've seen taking shape with my clients in the most phenomenal way. So here's where I am now compared to where I was before, where it was just troubleshooting, always being in the same situation back at the beginning. Now I have this imposter speech that I can use in so many different scenarios. In fact, I think I can honestly say that whatever is bugging me, it doesn't even necessarily have to feel like, oh, I'm having an imposter syndrome moment. Whenever something's bugging me, something's not quite right, or I'm doubting myself, then I know I have the imposter speech tool. I bring it out and I apply it to that situation, and I use it to help me solve whatever problem it is I'm dealing with at that time. So today in this live, on this broadcast, I want to share with you some actual examples of how I'm literally using the imposter speech in my life all the time. And this is just 3 examples to give you an idea, and hopefully to really plant a seed of curiosity in you about what the imposter speech could be for you, what it could do for you in your life, and how it could transform you. So here are some examples. The first one is when I am feeling demotivated. So I had this about a couple of weeks ago where I just had a conversation with my COO, actually. And the outcome of that conversation, and the suggestion from that conversation, of the many things we covered, was that I effectively needed to do this whole massive pile of work, like this brand new project that I needed to start and put all of my energy and effort into, and was going to be all consuming. And I know it was going to be hard, but I needed to do it. And I just thought, honestly, really, I am working so hard on so many things. I'm giving it my all. What more do I, is there really this whole new world I need to go into? Is there really so much more I need to do? I'm trying to think of what the equivalent might be for you. So if you are, for example, let's say you're a lawyer. I know lots of my clients are lawyers, not all of you, not all of the listeners are lawyers, but let's say you're a professional and you've just done a massive project, right? And this project was supposed to put you on the map, set you up so that you're ready for the next step. And then you find out that, yeah, that project's really great and you've done a really good job on that. But actually, what you really need if you want to make the next step is to go down a whole different avenue and do a whole new project altogether. How would you feel? I'm guessing you feel a little bit like I was feeling that day. Like, what? Like, how much more of myself can I give? I'm working so hard. I'm giving everything I can. Like, is it really the case that I have to go down and do so much more? I felt demotivated. I felt really despondent. The kind of despondency that makes you want to just down tools and go, why am I bothering? I've written that in my notes. My why do I bother days. So when you're having a time like that, what do you do? This is how I manage that situation, and what I do whenever I'm having a why am I bothering day or week. I turn to my imposter speech. And I think about the whole speech, but I look at the certain specific parts of it. Now, for those of you who haven't listened to any of the teachings I've done on the imposter speech, before I explain how I used it in this scenario, I'm going to give you a quick recap. So the imposter speech is this powerful, practical, portable tool that I've created to help you solve your imposter syndrome. Because your imposter syndrome, it's not a problem that you need to fix. It's a puzzle that you need to solve. It's the puzzle of who you are. So I've created the imposter speech. There are 5 elements to it. And together, by doing the work on those 5 different layers, you come up with the solution. You solve the puzzle of who you are. And in doing so, it enables you to stand up, step up courageously, boldly, authentically to whatever the task at hand is, but also to whatever your goals and ambitions are in your work and your life. And it helps you to overcome the challenges and the obstacles that are standing in your way. So it's amazing. I'm so excited, so passionate about what this imposter speech that I've created can do, what it has done for me, and what it can do for you. So we've got this speech. It's got 5 layers. So one of those particular layers or steps is the question, why are you here? And it's that question, why are you here? Why am I here? That I use in a scenario where I'm feeling despondent, feeling demotivated. I tap into that part of my speech and I ask myself, well, why am I here? And this is how I answer that question. For me, well, I know I value growth. I value pushing myself, growing into new areas, learning new things, developing myself, seeing what I'm capable of, what's possible. I like this idea of constantly evolving, growing myself in order to evolve. That's why I'm here. I'm also here because, you know what? I value achievement. I value attainment. I value setting goals and achieving them and having that success. It's important to me. It always has been. And I know this very clearly deep in my soul because I've done my imposter speech. I've done this work. I value creativity. It makes me feel alive. Anything where I can I have the opportunity to create ideas, to share ideas with you. Like the imposter speech is the product of my desire to creatively approach and solve problems. So creativity is an intricate part of innate, not sure what the right word is there, but it's that's the word, an integral part of who I am. So being able to recall that creativity is important to me in that moment really helps with my motivation. I also know that empowerment is so important to me. Power, I talk about power in terms of self-empowerment all of the time. So anything that I do that involves either finding my own power in a situation where I feel challenged or helping you to find yours, that's going to bring me alive. So what you can hear there are growth, achievement, creativity, empowerment, 4 of my core values that when I'm just even talking about them, make me feel excited, make me feel alive. And as long as I am serving those values, it doesn't matter how hard the task is in front of me. It doesn't matter how daunting it may seem to go down a particular path. When I can connect with why I am here, it changes everything. So that's an example of how just even that one step, that one part of my 5-step imposter speech can really help you to feel more motivated. Here's another part. Where am I going? Right, that question that helps me tap into what my goal is in the moment, but also the wider purpose of why I'm pursuing that goal, what the goal is really about, and really the reason why achieving that goal is not about me. It's about the difference I can make, the impact I can make in the world, the fact that I can answer that question, the fact that I know immediately my purpose is to I want to help 1 million people solve their imposter syndrome. My purpose is to empower people just like you to not be held hostage by imposter syndrome anymore, but to step up and really realize your potential, overcome all those obstacles, solve your imposter syndrome so that you can see what you're capable of. When I step into my purpose that's beyond what I'm doing for my own kind of more smaller goal, suddenly I feel like, wow, it's not really about me. What I'm doing is really important work. Imagine how much more motivated I feel when when I can connect to and tap into the power of why I am here and where I am going. So 2 parts of my imposter speech. And as I've already said it, I'm going to say it again because it's really important. This isn't just some why am I here? Oh, I'll just list my values, or I'm just going to write down what my goals are and then you'll get there. That's not how you get the power from this speech. You get the power from doing the work of working through the process. And you need to do that in a guided way through my process, or with somebody like me with me, the imposter syndrome coach, the imposter coach, right? I'm going to be calling myself that. So, I'm the person to come to, right, to solve your imposter syndrome. So that's just one example. Feeling demotivated, despondent, overwhelmed with how daunting, all the extra work, more work that's being required of me. Tap into why I'm here, tap into where I'm going, and I'm back. I've got my mojo back, raring to go, super motivated. My second example of how I use the imposter speech in the real world, in my real life, to really help me, to push me through, is when I'm feeling like a fraud. So classic imposter syndrome symptom. I shouldn't be here. Who am I to be the person doing this? Full of this sort of moments of self-doubt. So my example for this, of course, is perhaps the most prominent one. And you will have seen me, right? If you've been following me on social media, you would have seen me during like the launch of my book. So launching Be the First at the end of February. I had some moments, I have to tell you, when you've worked really hard at something, and it's not even just that you've worked really hard about it, but something that's so exposing, is so visible, right? It's putting myself out there, sharing my message, passionate though I am about that message, very daunting. And I did have those moments I absolutely had those moments of crisis with the book launch itself, when I was writing it, thinking, I'm a fraud, I'm going to be found out. So what was it? How did I use the imposter speech to get me through that? First of all, with the step that asks, where am I? That's the step that's about internalizing my success. There's a whole episode on that on the podcast. There are lives on Facebook about that, internalizing my success. What does that mean? It doesn't just mean listing the successes I have or telling myself I deserve to be here. It's literally going back and almost experiencing the moment and the moments in which I have achieved success. And importantly, identifying what those moments are, acknowledging them as a success, as opposed to just sweeping them aside and assuming that, just because I've achieved it, then maybe it wasn't so hard after all. How can it have been so hard if I've achieved it? Which I know lots of you do, and I do sometimes. Yeah, actually acknowledging the success, but also having a broader sense and understanding of what success is. A broader measure, it includes so many things that perhaps other people wouldn't consider a success, but actually, took a lot, required a lot of you in order to achieve that. So it's internalizing your successes by really recognizing what they were and re-experiencing them. So when I think, let me come up with some examples of when I'm tapping into my where am I part of my speech. A big one for me, there's two things, right? There's two examples I want to share with you. And I want to share two because they're really different. One of them is kind of obvious. So when I got my A-level grades to get into university, so it's really on my mind at the moment. My eldest son, Dylan, he's studying for his A-levels. He's very focused on getting his amazing offer from Bath University. I'm so proud of him. He's super focused on getting his grades. So I was, at the age of 18, super focused on getting my grades. I'd had an offer from Cambridge. It was unbelievable that someone like me, from my background, my social economic group, would have such an offer. And there was so much going on in my life at that time, including critically, and I've talked about this before, being evicted in the weeks running up to my A-levels and having to find places to stay at friends' houses, and trying to study while all of that was going on was really challenging. So when I got those grades, and by the way, my A-level grades they weren't super high or impressive. I mean, my kids have a big chuckle and they go, what did you get in your A-levels again? So I got, what did I get? I got an A and an A and two Bs, I think it was. That was my offer to get into Cambridge. So for lots of like very bright people, maybe even you yourself, you'd be thinking, wow, that's not very amazing A-level grades. Like my son, who's predicted A stars across the board, would be like, wow, okay, mum, not very impressive A-level grades. But listen, you have no idea how significant those A-level grades were for me, how much it took for me to achieve those grades, given where kind of environment that I grew up in, what I was going through during my school years and keeping hidden and struggling with so much, all on my own, all internally. Massive achievement. When I tap into that experience, what it meant for me achieving that, I remember and I relive opening the envelope the day it came. And, that feeling of nausea as you have a look to see if you've got what you need to get into university. Maybe if you're a student or you're a recent student, you're a university graduate, undergraduate, and you remember that feeling. So horrible, isn't it, when you don't know? And I guess you check them online now, a bit outdated with me opening the envelope. But that moment, when I step into that moment, I can internalize that whole experience, and it gives me the most tremendous boost is the word I want to say, but doesn't even begin to describe how physiologically I am impacted by the memory of that moment. Suddenly, whatever situation I'm in, I'm not just Caroline in this moment, like about to attend my book launch and go live on a Zoom call and feeling like suffering from imposter syndrome. I'm Caroline who had that moment of success and managed to achieve that in the past. And that brings so much power to who I'm able to be in this moment. So the second example I want to share with you is because I want you to realize about that, really recognize the breadth of success, what it can be, how we can define it. So I have the most amazing video memory. So a kind of visual memory, but a live memory of being on a lacrosse pitch. So I played lacrosse at school. I went to a grammar school, they played lacrosse, and I was pretty good at it, actually. I can say that. I played for the first teams and I played for the county for a couple of years running. And I remember, it's not even that makes me think, step into this kind of success energy. I remember one particular match, and what was amazing at school for me was I was playing with a lot of my really good friends were in the first team with me. And in fact, my very good friends who now, kind of 25 odd years later, I am still really best friends with, we were all on this team. So playing was so much fun and we won so much of the time. And anyway, so I remember I've got this live video in my brain, in my memory bank, of playing this match, and it was us doing so well and playing so well. And I just remember there's this one moment that was quite I don't want to say aggressive, not in that she was aggressive, but there was an aggressive attack going on, and the ball was flying everywhere. And I just remember this ball flying down the pitch, and a lacrosse ball's really hard and you can throw it really fast. And I remember leaping up. This is my slow-mo dramatic recollection. Leaping up with my lacrosse stick and just extending my arm with this stick as far as it could go, and me jumping as high as I could jump. I can jump pretty high. And this ball flying through the air, so I'm reliving it now, in slow motion. I should create some sort of a soundtrack in my head for this, actually, because that would make it come even more alive. And I intercept this ball at the most, like I'm literally flying. And I intercept this ball and somehow managed to then run the rest of the pitch and score. It was like one of those TV sporting moments that whole movies are built around. I must have been maybe 16 when that happened. I'm now, shock horror, in my very, very late 40s. I don't want to spoil the fun. That was so many years ago. But all I have to do is remember that moment, picture myself in my video, like flying high, intercepting that ball and then going on to score a goal. It wasn't even like the winning goal. It wasn't even, but that moment is so evocative of a successful achievement for me that it allows me to, I step into the energy of being such a kind of powerful, powerful, influential, confident, capable person. Like when I can tap into that energy as I'm about to walk on a stage, stand up in front of hundreds of people, be on a screen, you can hear it in my voice. How animated and excited do I sound just by being able to step into that? And in case you're all wondering if you joined later on in this broadcast, I'm talking about the power of the imposter speech to completely change my state in any moment and get me to show up as the best that I am, as who I really am, just by being able to answer the question. Well, just by knowing when my imposter syndrome is triggered, knowing to ask myself, where am I? Yeah, knowing to answer that question with my successes that I have internalized by a process that I have worked through. So how amazing is that? And there are so many of those successes because I've done this work that I can draw on, I can experience in the moment, that will bring me that amazing energy. So when I feel like a fraud and I can tap into that feeling, that emotion, that experience, again, it changes everything. And I'd love for it to be able to do that for you. I know that you have those successes that I can help you to draw on, to draw out, and so that and to experience, right, in those moments when you need to show up for however big a challenge, however big a task or project in front of you, being able to easily access those moments and experiences is what gives the imposter speech its power. So again, with the feeling like a fraud, it doesn't even stop there. It's not even just that where am I question. The other question is, again, where am I going? I've already talked about the where am I going part of the speech when I talked about using it when I was feeling demotivated, but it works here as well, right? If I'm feeling like a fraud, I don't deserve to be here, knowing to ask myself, where am I going? And knowing how to answer that question with my goals and my sense of purpose does what? Well, if you were listening to what I was saying about what the purpose bit does, it reminds me it's not about me. It's so much bigger than me. So again, if I'm going to step on stage or put myself forward for an opportunity, I'm not thinking, I'm not limiting myself by thinking, should I? Am I the right person? I'm not, and I'm a fraud, and being able to step into where am I going, and my purpose means I can think about, no, but what kind of impact could I have if I did this? What is this really about? What kind of difference can I make? What am I really being asked to do here? It's so much bigger than than me. It's really not about me and whatever. I know exactly what the self-doubt is. It's not really about me and the imposter syndrome feelings I'm feeling right now. It's about something so much bigger, more important. Amazing. So where am I going? Super powerful in the real world when you're feeling like a fraud, questioning whether you should be there, thinking it should be other people. My third example, my final example. I'm so excited about this subject. I think I could probably go on forever. Incidentally, my my COO, her name's Pauline. She's great. She's very good at kind of reining me in and helping me stay focused on the long-term strategy. And she's also helping me to kind of be much more efficient, for example, in the amount of I produce a lot of content for you guys for free. And she said to me earlier today, so I think your Facebook Lives could be like much shorter. You can make them much shorter, more condensed, and that's a great way forward. And here I am, 37 minutes into my Facebook Live, this broadcast, the podcast broadcast, and I'm still going, but we're almost there. My third example that I want to share with you, when I want to give up. So when things feel too hard, when I don't want to do it anymore. Do you ever have a day like that where you're just a bit over it and you just think, I don't want to be doing this anymore. It's too hard. It's too challenging. It requires too much of me. There's always a problem. There's always an obstacle that comes up. Yeah, when you feel just a bit depleted and exhausted, or you want to give up because you're just not up to the task. You think, it's a very important correction. You want to give up because you think you're just not up to the task. You're not good enough. How can that imposter speech help you in that scenario? Here's how it helps me. It's just even one key question that's part of the imposter speech, which is, how did you get here? I love this question. How did I get here? Do you know that answering that question alone, even if you left aside the other 4 parts of the imposter speech, if you could answer that question alone, having worked through the imposter speech process, right, in order to help you to find and extract, right, the right ingredients from your past experiences, if you know how to answer that question in the moment when your imposter syndrome is triggered, I can't imagine any situation which you can't get through. Here's how it works for me. How did I get here? Wow, I have so much to draw on. I think of the time while I was at school when I was really struggling with so much was going on with my family, and at a certain point, there was a time when I was actually just being, there I am trying to achieve, trying to do really well to basically pull myself up out of a very difficult, very challenging childhood, and being like teased by family members for having my head in books all the time, being made fun of because I was like, 17, 18, and I hadn't already like had a child, or it wasn't my ambition to have a child at that, things that culturally in my family at the time was considered a a goal, an achievement, right? To have children really young. And so there were moments when, in order for me to keep going and to achieve, it took such tremendous courage out of me, because it meant going against what those who were around me thought was valuable and important. There were times when I had to be so committed that no matter what, I had to keep going. Like the commitment that my younger self, the younger me, has displayed through all sorts of challenges and all sorts of stop signs, but my commitment to still achieve my goal is incredible. Being able to tap into the resilience that I've had to show that I've developed over the years, and like tapping into the memory of how hard I have worked at certain moments, like so hard. And I know you've got those moments too to call upon, but I can tap into the power and the energy of those memories and bring them to work for me right now. So it doesn't matter that I have these moments where I want to give up, where imposter syndrome is saying it's too hard, it shouldn't be you, you're a fraud, you don't deserve to be here, you're going to be exposed, all of those expressions, those phrases that we know so well and are so familiar to us. When I tap into like what I've been through, what it's taken for me to get here, the times I've had to pick myself up again and keep going, there's nothing right now that's too big a challenge, that's too daunting, that I don't think I have the resourcefulness for. So being able to connect with that courage, the commitment, the resilience, the creativity I've had to show, the determination, wow, how incredible that is, that turns me around in that moment, these days, any day, right now, in this moment. If I was to be feeling imposter syndrome, the memory, the recollection, the ability to answer that question, how did I get here, is what will get me through. So there's one last thing I wanted to say about using the imposter speech as well. Really amazing. Maybe I should do a separate, I should probably do a separate broadcast on this as we approach 42 minutes. But it's amazing just working through every step of your imposter speech, just answering those questions, no matter what's going on. Anytime something doesn't feel right, you're stuck, you're looking for the answer, you can't quite find it, you've had a bad experience, you've had some negative feedback. You just use your imposter speech as a process, as a model to work through. Answer those questions, write it down. You will feel different as a result of doing that. You will unblock, find your way forward, I assure you. And that's something, if you want help with knowing how to do, I am here. This is my jam. That's the work I am so here to do and so excited about helping you with. Okay, so amazing results. The imposter speech will put you, in a nutshell, it'll put you back on track. So I want you to think about that going forward. Think about how useful would it be actually if every time I felt like a fraud, that I didn't deserve my success, every time I wanted to play small, wanted to shrink, what if I had my one go-to tool that I knew could get me through it? And here's two amazing things about the imposter speech that make it so much more powerful than just having tips and tricks that you kind of dip into and just choose in the moment. First of all, it means that the more you use it and see how it works and how effective it is, it means you can start trusting yourself as you go forward. When those opportunities come that you think, oh, I'm not sure, I would rather prefer to play small because I feel like an imposter, and you shy away from, right? When they come, you can trust yourself to get through it. Not because you think I can get rid of my imposter syndrome. I've said this 100 times. You're not getting rid of your imposter syndrome, but that's okay. You don't need to get rid of your imposter syndrome. You need to just solve the puzzle of imposter syndrome. So when you know you've got a tool that is the imposter speech, that is always going to solve that puzzle for you, no matter what you are doing, what challenge you are facing, when you know that, it's incredible, because you can suddenly be so much more daring and courageous in the goals that you both set yourself, but also in the challenges that you rise to, the opportunities you choose to seize. So first one is trusting yourself. And the second one is the more you use it, the more it starts to create what I see it as like this confidence in layers. Your confidence builds over time. It's not confidence that flares up because you've used an easy trick in the moment that's just got you through the next step, and then it dies away, fizzles away again, and you're back where you started. This is confidence that is cemented in who you are. And you just then end up having layer after layer after layer of positive experience with your imposter syndrome that builds incredible confidence. If you have seen the work I do, whether it's through the podcast, being on what episode I am on, 85 or 86, whether you see me on a Zoom call or on giving a keynote over Zoom, whether you've seen me on a stage speaking to a room full of lawyers, for example, when you see me showing up for a Facebook Live and doing these sessions and nobody will be listening, or maybe there aren't any comments, when you hear the confidence with which I can deliver be interviewed on a podcast, for example, I want you to know that my imposter syndrome has not gone away. But what has happened is I've learned to solve that imposter syndrome, and in repeatedly solving it, time after time, year after year, what I have acquired is this foundational confidence that allows me to show up to this broadcast, show up to whatever task is ahead of me, as well and as confidently as I do. It's thanks to my imposter speech. It can do the same for you. I'm so excited. If you love this episode, this broadcast, three things I'm going to ask you to do. The first one is send me a comment, share with me what you think about the imposter speech. Are you curious about it? What other tips or tricks or tools do work for you? I invited you to share those as well for the benefit of others in our imposter community. Yeah, so let's start sharing our imposter syndrome strategies. That's the first thing I want you to do. The second thing I want you to do is subscribe. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please use your subscribe button below if you like these. They're really long, free teachings that I'm giving, and it's so helpful. And I'm going to be doing this week after week. So if you're enjoying it, please subscribe to make sure you don't miss a broadcast. And the third thing I want you to do is to and on the subscribe point, if you're listening to this, on the podcast, please subscribe to the podcast, the Caroline Flanagan podcast, where you'll be the first to hear when a new episode comes out. And then the third and final thing I want you to do is, if you are not already a member of my incredible, fast-growing, very exciting Imposter Syndrome, the Imposter Speech Facebook group, then I want to invite you to join me. So look me up on Facebook. You might have to search imposter speech or imposter syndrome. Certainly search my name and ask to join the group. This is a growing community, my growing community of imposters. And together we are going to be solving imposter syndrome this year. So that's it. I am so excited, loved delivering this for you today. And I look forward to seeing you same time, same place next week. Thank you. Bye for now.